من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Of the things that we remind ourselves of today is a matter that is a concern of every single Muslim, and that is كيف تنال رضا الله. How do you attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That one can ensure that when they return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they return back to Allah whilst Allah is pleased with them. That is the only concern of the Muslim, that they attain the pleasure of Allah in this life, and also the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He forgives them of their shortcomings. Because there's no doubt, as Muslims, as mankind from our nature, as the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught us, كل بني آدم خطاء وخير الخطائين التوابون. Every child of Adam shall make mistakes, will fall into sin. However, the best of these individuals, those who do fall into sin, are those who return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who seek His forgiveness, those who ask and seek for Allah's mercy to be bestowed upon them. And when we speak about attaining the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it comes with our belief as Muslims, our acts of worship, and also the way we deal with others, that we attain the pleasure of Allah in all of these aspects of life. And the first of those matters is al-aqidah, the belief that the Muslim has, al-mu'taqid al-sahih. They have al-mu'taqid al-sahih, the correct belief in Allah Azza wa Jal. Because no act of worship shall be accepted from you except is established upon tawheed. And that is the asas of all acceptance of actions, that is done upon ikhlas and mutaba'a, following the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَلِهَذَا خُلِقْنَا. And for this we have been created. كما قال الله تعالى وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. I have not created mankind nor jinn kind except to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. So upon us is to seek Allah's pleasure in fulfilling that duty, to fulfilling the objective of why we are here in the first place. And the one who fails to acknowledge the purpose of life, that is the one who deprives themselves from this goodness, from this mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the bliss and reward that awaits in the next life. But as for the one who knows why they are here, what is the purpose of their creation, then they find every possible means to attain that place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that final abode of pleasure. And it can be done in your work, it can be done in how you deal with your family, as long as you have the correct intention. And that is the importance of knowledge. When a person has knowledge, they are able to rectify their affairs. They are able to ensure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always a priority. The husband, when he sustains his wife, when he fulfills her duties, is not for her, it's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She reaps the benefits of this. And that is why we are encouraged to seek a God-fearing spouse, someone who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you don't have to worry about these things. It doesn't become, my wife, she wears hijab, she wears niqab, for me. It's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then I reap the benefits of this. The husband goes out to sustain himself and his family, earn a lawful living, not for his family, but for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the family bear the fruits of this. So we have to ensure Allah is always our priority. And that's why when it comes to the belief, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْضَى لَكُمْ ثَلَاثًا وَيَقْرَهُ لَكُمْ ثَلَاثًا. He mentioned that Allah is pleased for you with three matters. And He also hates for you three matters. The three things that Allah loves and is pleased with for you. أَن تَعْبُدُوهُ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. That's the first of them. وَهَذَا فِيمَا رَوَاهُ Muslim. That you worship Allah alone and do not associate partners with Him. وَأَن تَعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. And that you hold firmly to the rope of Allah together, united upon the truth. Nothing else. Not because we're from the same country, we share the same language, we share the same culture. We unite as Muslims upon the Quran and the Sunnah and the understanding of the Salaf of this Ummah. That is where we will find strength and unity. And that is what Allah is pleased with. And in something that the third one isn't mentioned, this the hadith, Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, he mentions, وَأَن تَنَاصَحُوا مَنْ وَاللَّهُ اللَّهُ أَمْرَكُمْ. And that also you advise those who Allah has entrusted in rulership over you, those who Allah has given authority over you. You advise them for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that is within any capacity. Whether they're leaders of countries, leaders of masajid, leaders of charities that take care of the affairs of the Muslims. One is to advise them. There is no benefit in us talking about them, getting angry, enticing emotions. What does that do for us? What good results will come from this? But if we strive to advise them for the sake of Allah, maybe one of us, our words will be heard. Maybe one of us will be a means for that person's rectification. And when these people who are in authority of the Muslims are rectified, then the Ummah will benefit at large. And that is from the maqasid of the Sharia, that we look at the holistic benefit for the Ummah, not an individual person's benefit. So we have to bear this in mind. This is what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates, al-qila wa qal, qila wa qal. And there's too much of this. Always talking about he said, she said, backbiting, slandering, carrying tales. Always wanting to be significant by being involved in other people's affairs. People, they don't enjoy their own life, so they try to get involved in other people's by causing corruption and ifsad bayn an-nas. These are the things that Allah hates, especially those who carry tales, especially those who slander and attack the honor of others. And also of the things that was mentioned were كَثْرَةُ السُّؤَالِ, always asking abundant questions. But what kind of questions are we talking about? Do we remember the story of Musa alayhi salam and his people that Allah mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah? And they were commanded to sacrifice one cow. But what do? They ask questions, not to fulfill the obligation, to prolong it, to delay it, to make it difficult. So what was the result of this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it difficult for them. And that's what happens when we ask too much questions without knowledge. We always want to ask and ask. Why don't we go and learn? Why don't we learn our religion? Study as the ulama have advised us. Study as the Sahaba did with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Why don't we go and learn? Why are we always asking, and then wonder why this person's afflicted with waswas? They can't get out of their head. They question every single thing because they don't take time to learn. Go and learn the religion, because this is of the easiest ways to attain al-Jannah. كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله به طريقا إلى الجنة. Whoever treads a path seeking knowledge therein, Allah will make easy for that individual the path to Jannah. But sometimes you want to ask too much questions, or sometimes we are stuck between something being halal and haram. But my desires want me to fall into this action. So I keep asking until I find someone who says it's permissible. This is a sickness of the heart. When we have difference of opinion in the religion, follow that which seems to be the strongest based upon evidence, not based upon your inclinations of your desires. not based upon your inclinations and your desires. This is not praiseworthy. الخلاف بين أهل العلم هذا رحمة من الله ويدل على التيسير في الشرع. This is mercy from Allah, these differences of opinion, and it also is evidence of how easy our religion is. But this is to be used and understood based upon knowledge, not desires. And when we tread a path seeking knowledge, we will find clarity. Things become clear. Things that were difficult become easy. And that's from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from the best acts of worship, of the voluntary acts of worship, is to seek knowledge. Is to seek knowledge. And as we mentioned many khutbas ago, Al-dunya mal'una, this world is cursed. Mal'unun ma fiha, that which is within it is also cursed, except for dhikrullah, wa ma wallah, wa alimun wa muta'allim, except for the remembrance of Allah, and that which is beloved to Allah from the righteous actions, and a person of knowledge, the one who teaches the people, after being the last one mentioned, a person who seeks knowledge, a person who learns their religion. They take time for the sake of Allah. When someone tells you, if you come on this 6-week course with me, you will learn how to make 6 figures. You will learn how to make money. You will become rich. I am not going to charge you. You may have to pay a deposit just to secure your position. You will see how many people come running. But when we are told, go to the circles of knowledge, where the angels descend upon you and they ask Allah to forgive you. وَالْحِيتَانْ فِي الْبَحَرِ وَالنَّمْلُ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ, the fish in the ocean, the ants on the earth, they all seek forgiveness for you. No one is to be seen. The mercy comes from Allah, the circles of knowledge, the sakina, the tranquility. The people are nowhere to be seen. But when we call them to benefit in their worldly life, they are in the front row. Even if these courses are in rented parts of the masajid, they are there in abundance. But you call them to the hereafter, they find many excuses. And this is the jahil person, the one who is short-sighted, the one who truly doesn't know what will benefit them in this life and in the hereafter. Where does this sustenance you're seeking come from? Is it not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So how can you seek it in a way that is not pleasing to Him? How can one think that if I try to be close to Allah and I strive to gain closeness to Allah, that Allah will leave me, Allah will forsake me, Allah will neglect me, Allah won't provide for me? How can I have such a thought? How is it I don't understand that Allah is Ar-Razaq, Allah is a sustainer? And if I do all that I can, that Allah is pleased with me, then I am more likely to be deserving of His provisions. This is the mentality that we have to correct and return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the last thing that was mentioned of the things that Allah hates, ida'atul mal, wasting of wealth. Some of us, we've been favored with wealth by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other day, I was in a little place and I heard someone mention they had gained a lot of money. And the first thing they mentioned, I'm going to buy a type of coat. And we're approaching the summer now. But I'm going to buy this coat that costs the same amount of money they've just made. What sense does this make? And this is what the young people are affected with. Impressionist. I care about other people's opinion. So I will wear the most expensive clothes, but my fridge is empty. My parents are struggling. It doesn't make sense. We waste our wealth on temporary things. Something that will be unable to be worn after a period of time. I increase my weight. The clothes get damaged. But then you tell someone, you know, you can build a well with 10 times less the money of that coat, 10 times less that pair of shoes you're wearing. No one cares about the shoes. You just become a target for other youth who don't have, who are deprived. They want what you have. And they will go to any length to take it. And we're in a time now People are being killed for the shoes that they wear, the clothes that they wear, the phones that they have. For what reason? Because we are so attached to the worldly life. But imagine a young person who has been blessed with wealth and they are guided to spend that wealth in a way pleasing to Allah. There are some orphans in this place. They're in need of a water well. And a young person goes and does that. How long will they benefit from this sadaqah? For how long will they reap fruits of reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then we die and we forgot about these actions. One well, you might forget about it. But then you realize Allah was pleased with you because the amount of poor and needy people who drank from that one water well that you supplied. We have to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned in the Quran regarding the Sahaba, radiyallahu anhum wa radu anhu. Allah is pleased with them and they are pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we want to attain the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal, then we must imitate those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا فإنه غفور رحيم.